This is the Signal Cafe, where we focus on agile, product, and lean startup thinking. Today we're speaking with Mike Marr, who's the co-founder and CEO of Taylor Stitch, an American apparel company that's revolutionizing the way clothing is designed, manufactured, marketed, and sold. Mike, tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and Taylor Stitch and what you're into outside of work.
Hey guys, Mike Mahar here. A little bit about myself. So I actually grew up in a very small town on the coast of Maine, just north of Portland, a little cow town of like 6,000 people. Went to school outside of Boston, studied entrepreneurship. Never thought I would end up making clothes for guys. Was not my MO in life, but somehow found myself here. And post-college, my best friend and I headed west for no other reason other than we thought San Francisco sounded like a cool place to live. He had been here once for 2 days. He tricked some company into flying him out for an interview, and I had never been. So we packed up our lacrosse bags full of clothes, packed up my Nissan Pathfinder full of everything that we thought we might need, shipped it out. We flew out, and we arrived. And so been out here for the last 12 years. We started Taylor Stitch with like the idea of making custom shirts, and it's kind of now morphed into not only do we still sell a small amount of custom shirts, but a men's lifestyle brand that kind of leads into the things that we like to do outside of work. Kind of takes for me, we find ourselves living in an amazing city with incredible live music and food and beverage and art and culture. But we're always pulled to the outdoors, and that's kind of who we see our Taylor Stitch guy is a little bit of scratching our own itch in this. How do we make clothes that hit a form and function level that we don't ever have to change? So, if we make a double knee chore pant that, looks great with one of our Oxford Jacks, but it also works just as hard as you need it to in the woodshed. And that's how we think about everything in life. Everything's nice, works hard for you, but nothing's precious. And, so I spend a lot of my time outside of work. These days it's more so catered to taking care of my 6-month-old boy. But, in the previous days, it was a lot more mountain biking and fly fishing and, kind of chasing the mountains in the ocean wherever humanly possible. So looking forward to still working on hitting that balance of getting back to doing more and more of that.
And it gets hard, right? Finding time to get outside. I used to be a big rock climber, and I find myself doing that a little bit less. But I love how you referred to like the blend of function and form, and being able to wear the same pair of pants to work and to a nice dinner, and also hiking and also mountain biking. And it's hard to, or maybe it's not, right? Because it's that classic look. It's not necessarily super hard. But a lot of other companies would try to have you buy 4 pants from them for that same sort of occasion.
Yeah, we want you to be able to do everything in one.
So you go out to San Francisco. Did you have the idea for Taylor Stitch when you went out there?
Yeah, we left. We went to a small school called Babson College, which has about 1,700 undergraduate students, and the idea was that we were going to make custom shirts. We were going to put them online. We were going to have you be measured by a body scanner or a local tailor or seamstress or seamster, and then input your measurements and be able to make custom shirts. The internet wasn't ready for that in 2007 and 2008, and the financial markets had crashed, and nobody wanted to give 2 idiot 22-year-old boys millions of dollars to kind of go try and solve this problem. So we took the road less traveled in the Bay Area and bootstrapped it and figured it out all on our own, and went a very much more analog approach to it.
And so did it launch as that custom shirt where you go get your measurements, either them already or you work with a seamstress or a tailor, put them into the platform, and we'll send you shirts?
That was the original plan. And no, what ended up happening was we sourced one of the oldest shirt makers in the country. And then from there, we went and started to build custom shirts one-off for customers and like really get an understanding of like what it meant to fit and balance of a great shirt. And so
Yeah.
there was no crazy technology that was put into it.
So you said small town, no interest in menswear. How did you and your best friend get into custom shirts?
Um, so while like the first idea was while we were in Australia studying abroad, there was this brand called Wicked Campers, and they basically took old camper vans or just old vans and converted them. And then their kind of branding and marketing was they were like spray painted with everything from a giraffe print on it to the Beatles or the Simpsons, and like you saw these Wicked Campers like all over Australia, New Zealand, and we were like, oh, that'd be really cool. And then we didn't know a ton about financing and leasing cars, and it was not like the most ideal time to start that business in 2008 when gas prices were like north of $5 a gallon, and just it would have been like a very heavy capex. I don't think that there wasn't that many people that were traveling. The hashtag van life movement had not yet happened.
Right.
We were probably like a little early on that one. Seemingly, like looking back, could have been a really good idea. And probably a fun one, although we may have never grown up, and we always would have been like a couple of dirt bags, like riding around in vans across the country.
A lot of time in Yosemite.
Yeah, which may or may not be the worst thing in the world. It's a very different stroke from where I find myself today.
Right.
But that idea morphed into my original co-founder's father brought back custom shirts from Hong Kong. He was in the toy industry and went on business trips. And we kind of called ourselves the perfect mediums. We're both 5'9", 170, 175 pounds. And we just couldn't find a shirt that fit. Everything was, the Brooks Brothers slim fit was still a tent. And
yeah.
Like, the super high fashion stuff. We like went into like, we did our market research, like going into like the Neiman Marcus's and Barney's of the world. And you tried on like a $570 Tom Ford shirt, and it was just like, bit your armpits, and like nothing fit right. And we were like, what if we could make like custom shirts more accessible? And so that was kind of the original goal, like why we did what we did.
Yeah. And so the tailored fit, I don't know when that came around. It was like 2005, 2010, when people started actually realizing that tailored shirts should be different than they were in 1992. But I just gave up on this dream that I had had for the last couple of years of taking all of my favorite shirts from when I was like 13 and 18 and 23 and having them all actually tailored down so that they look good and they don't look super boxy.
Nice.
But I gave up on that and I gave them to Goodwill.
I was going to say very, very few people do that. Like,
right.
I will tell you, like tailored, like having your clothes tailored is, they look so much better.
Yeah.
Like even like, I'll buy our off the rack suits. Like I wore one of our Telegraph suits to my wedding, and like, after I had it tailored, it was epic.
Right.
It fits so perfectly. But before it fits well, but that like idea of having things tailored, but like the amount of effort it takes is just like naturally too much of a pain in the ass where people don't want to do it.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. There's so much of that in all sorts of different areas in life. And, but y'all y'all are finding ways around that fast fashion and really structuring your business model, opposed to the concept of fast fashion and opposed to the concept of waste.
Yeah.
And I want to get to that in just a second. In fact, so let's go there now. So talk a little bit about the Restitch program and a little bit about the workshop program.
Yeah. So both of them they all fit into this idea, this holistic idea of building a responsible company. Something that we've always admired Patagonia doing. And, we kind of look at ourselves and what we're doing is, taking a lot of those ideals and trying doing them, as good or better from a circularity perspective, and caring, as much as they do for like the normal guy. And so like, we kind of like hate the word sustainability, and we only focus on responsibility. It like feels to that is for us as though it's gotten to the point where sustainability is really just a thinly veiled word of marketing.
Sure.
And so we kind of put these like 5 pillars of responsibility in place, and it's helpful if I just kind of like give the whole kind of like reasoning behind it. Is like the first thing we want to do is always make products that are going to last, because the best thing that we can do for the world is make things that last. 85% of clothes every year end up in a landfill. That's inclusive of the things that we feel really good about when we go donate to Goodwill and Salvation Army, which is a scary thought.
Yeah.
And then the next two things that we do are more around the product, where use responsible materials and care for the people that are taking care of, that are actually building the product. So, in 2017, we used 0% organic cotton. By the end of this year, we will have used 95% organic cotton. So it's things like that, and just making dramatic changes to our supply chain as fast as possible. And then not only do we pay prevailing wages to all of our factory employees that we work with from our vendors, we also are working on building and launching development funds where they're able to make more money. So it's just a better life for them altogether. And then getting into the two things to kind of round out the 5 pillars of responsibility for us that you spoke about was the workshop is our internal crowdfunding campaign, much akin to Kickstarter. And the reason that we did it was because we were scared of overproducing and having inventory that we couldn't sell. Then we'd have to put on sale, so we'd never want to have to do that as much as a lot of. We still have promotions, but it's not as pervasive as it is in large retail that doesn't do any product testing, that over purchases and leads to. I'm sure you may have seen the Burberry got put on blast and they burnt $30 million worth of inventory last year, and or people are just selling things at 80-90% off just to get rid of them. There's huge liquidation issues, and I think that the number that I've heard is we're producing 100 million garments a year for 100 billion garments a year for 7 billion people. That's just an outrageous number of garments per person that nobody needs. I don't even know how to explain those numbers. And so the workshop is, how do we build more responsibly and build numbers that are more responsible, because there's a finite number of resources in the world, and we're using them way too fast. So we want to slow that down and actually care about the product that we make and make it last longer. And Restitch, which is our re-commerce initiative that we just launched a few weeks ago, and I guess about 3 weeks ago at this point, is that whole idea of keeping our products. Naturally these things are handmade. People use them and wear them, and hopefully wear them hard. And there are going to be rips and tears, and having them being a handmade product, there are going to be missed stitches and rivets that are missed and things like that come back as defective, and we want to fix them. And we don't want to get rid of that product just because it's defective. We want to fix it and get it back out into the commerce stream, and let the customer be able to purchase it. So we're super psyched about having Restitch live now, because it felt this kind of cap of circularity on what we're doing, and there's still a few other initiatives that we're going to kind of tie into that, but feeling really good about where we've kind of landed.
Yeah. When you jumped on the call, I was just telling you that I was checking out the Restitch program, and it's so complementary to. Okay, so the workshop program, you're building the right amount of the right products that your customers want. That is not only such a great business model, and not only is that so ecologically conscious, but it's also just about the most perfect instantiation of agile product management, right? You are getting immediate feedback from your customer about what they want, and then giving them exactly that.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. And then what would be potentially waste, or what would be potentially excess inventory, or whatever is going to qualify as, available for the Restitch program, then you are making that also available for people to use so that it doesn't end up in a landfill. It's incredible.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's fun. And it's I feel very lucky that we're able to do what we do, and it always feels as though it's a little bit of this uphill battle trying to get people to, the customer naturally doesn't care. It's just the human nature is to be inherently selfish. which
Right.
is like, I mean, everybody has like a bit of it. And it's like, it's just hard. There's a convenience to it, and to like truly be selfless and like do the best thing. Like I will say we are far from perfect as a business, but it's like, it's all like, how do we all together celebrate these little steps that we're taking to make the world better, and, and try and do it faster where we can.
Yeah. So y'all are now in 2019 in this almost ideal state of very immediate feedback from your customer, an extremely mature feedback cycle in manufacturing, production, marketing cycle. What what did your feedback and like iteration process and mindset look like in the early days and in the middle days in terms of maybe the analytics weren't there, maybe the traffic wasn't there in order to get as
Mm-hmm.
much data as you wanted? Um, what did that look like 10 years ago?
It was more like, really, I mean, 10 years ago, we were like, I think at that point, we were just selling custom shirts. So the feedback was more like, did your shirt fit or did it not fit? And if it didn't fit, let's fix it as quick as possible to make you happy with it. Um, and then as like we started to develop the ready to wear stuff, the iterative process was really around like launching small amounts of product, much akin to like a Supreme model, and selling it out and making sure that we were never like too far out over our skis in inventory, and like trying to stay as like lean as possible and figure out like how fast can we turn around product, like, as it currently stands. And so like that's, and as we kind of like outgrew that and outgrew like, buying fabric that was just, like, I mean, the big thing about trend in fashion and clothing is that you need to differentiate your product. And so, when you start to move from buying fabric that was, in stock, like on a roll already, and then making shirts out of it, to buying, custom fabric and custom designing your own prints and patterns, the lead times extend. So that's when we were like, man, like, buying, at the time it was like buying 500 yards of fabric was a lot. And we didn't want to, we obviously wanted to keep making custom fabric, but we wanted to mitigate the risk. And so, we started to figure things out like the workshop, and how do we utilize our customer and create a relationship with them where, they tell us what they want versus us guessing what we want. We always felt that the relationship between the customer and the company was very broken. Like, customers are kind of pushed to the back of the value chain where they don't have a say, and merchants and inventory planners kind of make a decision. Like, two merchants could be like you and I sitting in a room. One that you say, I want to make a white shirt, and I say I want to make a blue shirt, and we sit there and we look at some previous sales data, which may or may not be relevant going forward. We look at some forward trend analysis, then we fight about it, and like, you have the harder head. We're going to like, that doesn't make any sense, and then we pass it off to
Right.
inventory planning, and like, they try and marry that decision to the tops down financial model that the CFO built to then make a decision as to how much they should buy. And it was like, no, like, that doesn't make sense. So from there, we really tried to iterate on that. And I think, coming from a nerdy business school background and not from like a pure like designer or fashion background, like, that's, what kind of gave us those ideas and thoughts to change the way that we think.
Yeah. So to what extent at Babson did you learn about like digital marketing or e-commerce?
Nothing. I mean, in 2007, it like wasn't pervasive. Like, we were there
Yeah.
from 2003, 2007. Like, I mean, not there's not that much stuff being sold on the internet.
No, yeah. Did you learn that all on your own?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, for a while we didn't know what the hell we were doing. Yeah, it wasn't until like 2015 that we really like hired a team that like knew it. Like, we built things like very naturally, where like people gave us their email in the store, and we like put it on email lists and like emailed them when the product came. But like, it wasn't until like much later that we started to actually like do marketing, and pay for marketing.
Right.
It took us a while. Yeah, it took us a while to figure that out. We hired a few smart people that were smarter than us to solve that.
Well, you figured it out.
Some of it.
So would you say, based on the early emails as well as just based on your current feedback, what is the number one, I guess, like distinguishing factor or value driver?
I think it's like guys want products that last.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's like I think the male mentality is that like we don't necessarily love to shop. We like things easy for us, and like we want things with like great stories attached to them, that are gonna like last and stand up to the abuse that like we give them, and like that's what our guy at Taylor Stitch is. It's not the pure fashion guy. It's not the pure outdoors guy. It's somewhere in between that like wants that functionality, and knows that they can trust our product.
I think you hit the nail on the head there. Like a lot of guys that I know, myself included, like don't want to throw out an old shirt or don't want to like stop wearing an old shirt that might have a rip in the elbow, or a wallet that's falling apart. But it's because you've carried that wallet for 8 years and you remember when you jumped in the pool or got pushed in the pool and it got wet and it dried out and started to bust, but it's got a story behind it and it's like a part of you. And I think that things that do last inherently will develop these stories around them.
Totally. I mean, and that's a lot of the products we make. Like we make raw denim, like we talked a little bit earlier about like being denim nerds and like wax jackets and boots and the things that like, again, you develop stories and like the clothes become yours, because they wear into your patterns and have a different look than anybody else's.
Yeah.
And that's cool. Like, I mean, I can remember like there's times where I I have my jeans laid out on the floor and I was just like admiring them all and kind of like looking at, not, there's like 3 or 4 pairs that I have, just like see the different fades and like how they all, are. And like my wife walked in and she was like, what are you doing? And you're like, don't worry about it. This is my weird time. Like,
I love that you said that, and I can't wait for Mary, my wife, to listen to this episode because I troll her and my son all the time talking about my Evo on my jeans and on my wallet and the patina on my leather goods and stuff.
Yeah.
And they don't get it, and so I troll them even harder. But
Yeah.
But there's something really cool about that, and so you buy these pants that are one color, it's dark blue. Then 5 years later or 6 months later, they look like 98% of the jeans that you see in Nordstrom or anywhere else, except they didn't look like that off the rack. And there's something just really cool about that.
Yeah, they're yours. You own them. No, like nobody can change them. They get your weird fades and like that's what's cool.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: as you've scaled, and how many people are at Taylor Stitch now?
We have just around 20 people now, if you not including the stores.
Okay.
25 people. We have a small office back in Portland, Maine, with like 4 or 5 folks there, handling a lot of like customer retention and marketing and things of that nature. And then most of our like product and operations and brand marketing stuff is out here in San Francisco.
So how, as you've scaled, how have you ensured that the principles that are driving you to move in the direction that you are in terms of responsibility and just being conscious of people and the planet, how do you ensure that vision as the CEO is really carried out throughout the company? And also, how do you drive innovation throughout the company to make sure that that people are thinking kind of outside the box?
Yeah, I think like it starts with 2 things. It starts with who you hire and how you develop product. So like whenever we look for people, like I look for kind of like the crazy entrepreneurs that are, much like myself. We don't like managing people. We like, finding people that are, more intelligent than us, and, are have that kind of like thirst and fire to try and solve problems. On top of doing their daily job, but like, we don't want them to be limited by that.
Right.
That's kind of like, we have early conversations in every interview. John Arceo always says to be like the great thing about being in a place like Taylor Stitch is if you have an idea on a Tuesday, you could have it live on a Thursday. It's up to you. Go figure it out. And like we want, like yeah, we're very busy and like you don't always have time to do all the ideas that you want, but like we want you to like seek that time out and find that time and go execute. So that's the initial phase, and then always developing product and keeping product at the forefront of that is I think incredibly important. So like making sure that every time we go source cotton, it's organic. Like if we can, continue to push on our heavy bag program, which is 100% recycled, knits, t-shirts, things of that nature. Like where can we push that, and where can we push our manufacturers? And I think that like everything else kind of falls into place when you've set that up as part of like your reason for being, which is exciting, and I think like, then you try and make sure that like we're like at all touch points talking to the customer about like we build product that's going to last first and foremost, and that we do it responsibly. And then, helping the customer and having them like be a part of the brand in a more meaningful way, I think is always super important. I mean, there's like these businesses are in a way relatively simple, but still really hard to get right. I think, like you make a product and you sell it to somebody, and like you need to find the customer and you need to care for them, and you need to develop like deliver great product and service to them, and like that's that. Got to have the great product, you got to have the great service, and those combined, like it seems very simple, but many people don't do it right, which is so crazy to me.
Yeah, I think it's the easy way, and the models and the case studies that are out there. It's not always in line with how y'all are doing things, right? I think it does take that constant thinking outside the box and making sure that that you're not making decisions based on status quo, but rather based on the principles of the company.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's like I can't. People have said this quote a million times. It's like do what's right, not what's easy. I think it's like trying to get everybody to live by those rules. And again, not the easiest thing.
So, as the CEO of a startup that's now growing, I assume that you wore a ton of hats at the beginning, and I assume that now you're having to kind of take some of those off. What does that look like? How has kind of your role changed over time? And what parts of the business are you most involved in?
Yeah. So, like a lot of it's you go from like player to player, coach to coach, and sometimes back to player is like the easiest way to kind of explain it. And, it's weird. I think that like I always enjoy being a player. Like I don't love the coaching as much as I love like getting in the weeds and like solving problems with people. And so it's like it's definitely changed. Like, I'm not, I mean, we used to do everything. We built product. We, on the website, we ran the store. Like we did literally everything. And now it's like really about hiring. The role changes where you do a lot more recruiting and talking to people and trying to get that right, which is a huge challenge. Is like hiring people is one of the hardest things I've ever done, and like getting that right is always difficult because there's so much more you need to think about. Where it's like, when there's three people, like the three of us that founded it, Mikey Barrett and I, we knew each other, and like we knew that it was just like everybody die hard, like go do what you got to do and figure it out. Whereas like when you hire more people, like then there's team dynamics and personalities, things like that. And it naturally gets more challenging. And so, those are the biggest things that have shifted over the years, into like kind of where the CEO role starts today. And it's, like, listen, we still dig into a lot of stuff, at a very granular level to make sure it's going right. And it's this happy balance of like doing that and making sure you're not micromanaging, because that doesn't scale.
Right. So talk a little bit about product and what product management looks like, because y'all very much have a physical product side,
Yeah.
but you're also incredibly, you have an incredible digital presence. So I assume that those have a lot of overlap in terms of like the process and the mindset and the approaches that you take to product management. There's probably some differences. So talk a little bit about each of those and maybe how they align and how they're different.
Yeah, I mean, from a physical product perspective, we have a very sophisticated product development process that we're thinking a full year out, and analyzing everything that goes on, and how to scale that and how to make better product, and how to do cooler things and make cooler fabrics. And we're always trying to push the limits on what we can do from a responsibility perspective, like developing our hemp workwear fabric, developing our heavy bag fabric. And so there's a lot of things there. And then, I would say like the overlap really comes in the merchandising. Like when we're trying to develop these products, we're trying to develop product stories that, mesh together. And then we need that to really come together on the website as one. So the marketing message and emails and social posts and all of that digital manifestation of this physical thing you've built, that story is contiguous and succinct versus like very haphazard and all over the place, but like, and then as we talk about building the e-commerce and making that better, it's like, we spent a lot of time really fine tuning e-commerce and what our store looks like, and a lot of the effort now is spent on merchandising it. So definitely a separate process from the design and development of the website, but it's more that we focus that around like the consumer experience, less around like the product, and more thinking like how does the product merchandise into that experience.
Sure. So I see that you've sold 125,000 Jack shirts. Is that your most popular product?
Yes.
And is that the evolution of the initial Tailor Stitch product of custom shirts?
Wait, say that one more time.
Is the Jack the kind of evolution of the initial custom shirt launch when y'all first started out?
Yep. That is exactly like we started building shirts, and like we've always been a shirt maker, and that's where we like kind of hang our hat or hang our shirt, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's what it's like we've been known for. It's like a good portion of our revenue comes from making shirts.
So talk about, y'all have the Yosemite, y'all have the Jack. Every shirt you make is a cool kind of every guy sort of a shirt that you can see your grandfather in, you can see your dad wearing it, you want to wear it, you hope that your son wears these shirts in the future. How do you come up with, or how do you develop these kind of classic products, and what sort of where do you draw inspiration?
Most of where we draw inspiration is from our like life's experiences. It's like trying to draw, like pull out fabrics. Like our Yosemite shirt is, a lot of our shirts fit the same. Like it's a lot of like the same block, and then from there we like develop into styles. Like the Yosemite shirt is, based off some of our favorite shirts from growing up, our favorite like chamois and flannel shirts. And we're like, okay, let's make this fit better. And so that's what we go and develop. And so it's, there's a harkening to the past, while like a looking to the future is how we kind of think about our design process.
Yeah. Yeah, great shirts in the closet that just don't fit well. Wish that they did. Why don't we make one that does and is just as cool as this shirt from the 70s?
Yeah, exactly.
So, what else? What haven't we covered? What's coming up in the next year? What are you most excited about that you can talk about?
Oh man. Um, I think for me, it's a lot of we've done a lot of really hard work redeveloping the supply chain to be super responsible over the last 24 months, getting Restitch launched. I would say the next 12 months are, a lot of time spent doing what we've developed better and laying down a focus on, you know, continuing to tell the stories that we're telling in more depth. Um, we'll always be launching new products and there's a lot of fun stuff there, but um, that's that's where I'm spending a lot of my time, and that's where I think the rest of the business will spend a lot of their time. We're continuing to we launched a VIP concierge program with the team in Maine, so we'll continue to try and double down on that this year, and we want to be able to build we want to be the trusted place for guys to go shop, but hey, if you want to go find a vintage watch or learn about vintage cars, we want to be able to point you in the right direction too, and use the network of cool people and other businesses that we've kind of developed relationships with over the course of the last decade, 12 years, and do that. So that's where I see a lot of development being done. It's just how we think about customer service as a whole, in trying to scale up, doing more proactive outreach and creating one-to-one relationships with our consumer to, discuss their wants and needs.
Yeah, that's so cool. And you mentioned, right, use our network of cool people to help your customers out and to develop those relationships and conversations. It's not something that a lot of companies are interested in, though they should be, but it's also not something that an inauthentic company would be able to pull off. So I think that's a really cool endeavor.
And that's really a lot of exactly it is we have such a strong relationship with our consumer already that we want to drive that even deeper, which is fun.
Right.
It's I can't tell you how many times we've had customers send us jam at Christmas from Portland, Oregon, and say thank you for making great product, and it's those weird little relationships that actually mean so much and really set a path of who you want to be as a brand from a service perspective.
Sure. Man, this has been great. Mike, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Dude, you got it, Jack. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for your time and your candor and your insight. Really look forward to ordering these Restitch chinos, getting them in the mail, and hope everything just continues to take off. It's been great talking to you.
Everybody loves mail day. Let us know how the Restitch. We're working on doing a better integration. Unfortunately, Restitch is still a separate shopping cart, but we're working on doing a Shopify integration with the awesome folks at Yurtle, who have helped us do everything and launch Restitch and make it possible. So kudos to them, and we're looking forward to the next kind of phase of that too.
Very good. So I'll link out to the Restitch program and to the site and to all of your social.
Thanks, man.
Thank you so much again. Have a great day.
You too. Enjoy the weekend.
You as well. Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
All right. So thanks for listening to the Signal Cafe and this episode with Mike Mahar of Taylor Stitch. This was a super fun interview for me because I've been following Taylor Stitch for years, and I don't often get the chance to combine my passions for Agile and product and entrepreneurship and menswear all in one conversation. So thanks again to Mike, and thanks to you all for joining us. If you enjoy the show, you can check out the detailed show notes at signal.cafe/8. And please leave us a review on iTunes, tell your friends, and stay tuned for our next episode with Bayfar John Shai, CEO of Interworks. Thanks again. Adios.